like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurwitz behind the controls.
That's correct.
I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sounds like shonen knife. Never fear about what I said all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stayed all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. And do the things you do, stay all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on yours.
Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah. You think?
This is not mine.
Stayed all night, I gotta ride. Each time I stayed all night, no, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night.
R.I.P. Todd.
Text the round robin your questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757-354-5517.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose cross nights and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, take us past our spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
down off in these streets, no money left to spend. Still singing by the night before my brain is on the bed. Way up ahead, I see the crowd and flashing through their lights. I'd rather see the guy that jumps on
The round robin is back on the air. Week number 3 now on August the 15th, 2023, just after 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Stephen Murray, broadcasting from the beautiful Chicks Beach, Virginia studios, which I should warn you, we are under severe thunderstorm warning or watch. I think it's a watch, but it looks like it's getting pretty nasty outside here pretty soon. So if there's a power failure, there you go. That's going to be the reason. So I'll go ahead and say that right off the bat, that we have some nasty storms coming through. Somehow everything hits the crapper live on the air, then we'll pick it up when the power comes back on. So know that. All right. Let's see. ACC preview today. John Hale. Being John wore I was his producer. He was the show host of the afternoon sports talk drive, 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. on WFNR radio 101.7. Also on, I think, 105.3 The Bear. I think that was the other number of that call sign station. All these out of the New River Valley radio partners in Blacksburg, Virginia, the Radford area where I went to school. Basically, I worked for the station right after I got out of college. I put my degree to work, and thus the TV and sports writer became a radio guy and a facet of all trades of the sports medium at that point. Okay, so here we are. John Hale back with us, and we're going to do a full ACC preview. We haven't been together in about 23 years. The right number might be 22, but we'll go with 23. Long about ways, it probably is closer to 23 than 22. But John and I will be together for the first time since then on the air. So I'm excited about that, and we will go over a full ACC preview. We're going to spend a lot of time on that, commercial-free as well, and we'll do that right after this segment. I'll pipe in Nephew Dave later. We got a full slate of baseball as well. Everyone is playing tonight. No day games. So a lot to get into with that, and we'll see where everyone kind of stands there. In fact, we'll kind of start with that for a minute because it's good to update the baseball and stay on top of things with that one. There are basically just a handful of teams that are super, super hot right now. And then there are also some teams that are very, very bad at the moment. And one division in particular, which you might not really think of it off the bat. I mean, you might be able to name it. There's one division you don't mess with because everyone's 500 right now, and that's going to be one of the obvious ones. We'll talk about that one in a second. But the one that is really, really bad when I was kind of doing my research on it today is the NL West. They are sitting like this with the Dodgers a clear runaway at the moment with the lead there. The Dodgers a 9-game lead. Remember how close that was? In fact, the Diamondbacks were in first place for so long. The Diamondbacks now sit 13 games back of the Dodgers. The Giants are 9 games back. That's the next closest team. Padres all the way down to 16 games back, and the poor Rockies 26 games back. But how about this? While the Dodgers are 9-1 in their last 10 games, and they've won 8 in a row, the other 4 teams in the division right now are combined 9 for 30 in those 40 games combined. So taking a lot of L's are the Giants, D-backs, Padres, and Rockies. So know that. A division where one team is kind of heated up. The Cubs are hanging around, but the Brewers, after kind of slumping, have won now 4 in a row. The Reds kind of fallen a little bit, 3-7 now in their last 10. Pirates and Cardinals both playing about 500 ball. And I think when we talk to Nephew Dave later, we're just going to stay away from the teams that are 500 altogether right now.
because you don't know what you're going to get, and we're going to see if we can pick on the bad teams here in this stretch and capitalize maybe on some good teams as well in that mix. One of those games is going to apply tonight with Texas and the Angels. Texas pounding Los Angeles last night, 11-0. So Max Scherzer does well there. That move from the Mets seems to have worked out for him, and he'll get a chance here in the postseason as the Rangers are now 3.5 games up on the Astros. Mariners 7.5 games back. We're hoping they would gain some ground on our own personal end, but they have not been able to. The Mariners 7-3 in their last 10, though, while the Rangers stay hot. They were hot last week, 8-2 overall. Angels have only won 3 games in their last 10, and they've had, ever since the trading deadline, they have been bad. And they are 2 games now below 500 and 12.5 games back of the Rangers. The Rangers, even with the injuries that they have in the middle of the lineup, still have deep bats. And, pretty much the Angels, you got to figure, are cooked. We have 120 games played, so we have 42 left. Let's see, the Mariners have 118 left. The Rangers 119. So you're somewhere in that neighborhood of 118 to 120 games played. But the Angels, with 12.5 games back at this point, I mean, you really need to talk about going on some kind of like 30-10 run. Even a little bit better than that, turning your winning percentage into 75%. Definitely if you can win 2 out of 3 every series here on the way out, that gives you a fighting chance, I guess. But the Rangers, really, really good right now, and they are dominating in that AL West. All right, the Twins still have separation over the Guardians. The Tigers kind of dilly-dallying 8 games back of them in that division, and the White Sox and the Royals trail drastically, although the White Sox were doing okay, but now losers of 3 in a row. So they're kind of going to stick down there in the mud here probably for the rest of the season. We put them and the Mets on the loser alert last week. So I guess overall that has worked. The White Sox 4-6. The Mets, if you didn't see it over the weekend, losing 21-3 over the Braves, and which was a nightmare series until they were able to salvage the Sunday night game. Mets 4-6 overall in their last 10. So, if we want to pick on someone, we'd like to see more of a 3-7 scenario for sure. But 4-6, those are the 2 teams we talked about going against last week. I guess you take that all day. Now, everyone else has been a favorite against them, so you got to keep that in mind as far as laying juice and if you made a profit or not. So we'll just call that a wash at the end of the day for the most part. But the Braves in control of the National League East, 11.5 up. Marlins 14 games back of them. Will the Nationals pass the Mets? That is my biggest question in the National League, and make the Mets finish in the cellar. Wow, that would be something if the Nats can surpass them. But just a game back are the Nats. They have a record of 53-66. Mets 54-65. Let's see. So really, that means 119 games for the Nats and 119 games for the Mets. Okay, so even up on that scenario. Let's see. Twins separation from the Guardians. We mentioned that, but that's the one division. Everyone is either 6-4, 5-5, or 4-6 in their last 10. So no interest there. You just don't know what you're going to get any given night. And right here in this recent streak, the proof is right there. The Orioles are still hot. They've won 3 in a row. They are 3 games up on Tampa, who gets a big win last night in San Francisco. Off the Wander Franco news, they lose Wander Franco for who knows how long at this point due to his investigation of inappropriate relationship from a post on social media. If you didn't hear any of that, I'm sure you have by now. If you've been paying attention to sports, then you know. So, yeah, Wander Franco in trouble. How long is he out of that lineup? I'm going to expect the Orioles to somewhat pull away here. They are in San Diego. They get a big win last night, 4-1. So the Rays with a tough road trip out west. The Orioles about done with their road trip. They'll go back home. Let's see how the Rays survive here. But I could see a stretch where if we talk about this in about a week, where the Rays are right now 3 games back, would not doubt if they're 5 games back, to be honest, and trailing further and further away. The Blue Jays, that's exactly what they have done. They've trailed further and further away. Red Sox, 6 games over 500, 11 and a half games back. The Red Sox, if they were in any other division, if they were in the AL Central, they'd be in first place. They would be in fighting it out with the Mariners there, trailing the Rangers in the West. But if they were in the Central, they would be in first place. So crazy to say that. That's how poor that Central has been. And again, right around 500 records. We don't want to mess with those teams. But the Orioles have been hot, 7-3. And how about this? The biggest loser lately are the Yankees. What is your problem, Yankees? If you Yankee fans want to scream about it, feel free. I got the text hotline charged up, 757-354-5517. I mean, I feel like the Braves and Yankees is so there's a special thing where if you're on the road and you come home and you're playing another team, after your road trip, when you get home, you usually have trouble with the away team, okay, on your first game back. I don't know. That's just kind of like a trend that's been there that I've heard some of the beeps talk about over the years. So the Braves didn't have a super long road trip, but they did have the Yankees in town for game 1 of their homestand with them, and it was a whitewash, 15-3, I think the final. It was 8-2 out of the gates. So the Braves blew out the Yankees. Severino goes tonight, who's a terrible pitcher. So you got to give a huge favor with Elder in the Braves. Elder is a good pitcher for Atlanta. Severino has been terrible. This just looks like really the Yankees' complete and utter demise right in front of our eyes, to be honest. They just don't have pitching. They don't have a lot of hitting depth. I mean, we know what the problem is. I told you to text in the problem, but we know what it is. And even Aaron Judge hasn't been that hot. He's been stroking a few home runs here and there, but I think this injury has really set him back. That bottom of the lineup for both New York teams, to be honest. You got to give the Mets a little credit. They're putting some of these youngsters in, and they're actually kind of paying off a little bit. But the Yankees have been doom and gloom here in the last stretch run. Anything else in the baseball I want to touch on? All right, looks like we got all that. So moral of that whole story is this. Teams that are hot that we will look to maybe continue to play on are the Orioles, as they are in San Diego. We will look at Texas as they are against Los Angeles Angels as well. The Nats have been hot. I think they have – who do they have? Whoever they have, it looked like – I think they have the Red Sox is who they have. So interesting matchup there in Washington. I don't know. That's probably more of a stay-away series. Maybe some overs. I could see both runs for both teams, really. The Nats playing hot. They can put some runs up at home, and the Red Sox can really score some runs. It doesn't seem like it's much lately, but, they can definitely have their bats break out. They have the talent to put up a 7 or 8 spot. So maybe some overs in the Washington-Boston series. We'll have to take a look at that. Brewers hot, 7-3. Do we want to stick with them? I don't know. I have a bad taste in my mouth every time I take a look at the Brewers and think about hooking them with someone else. I feel like they always are to let down, so I can't get with that right now. But maybe it is just a pick on all these National League West teams. Now, the Diamondbacks do play the Rockies. Rockies win that one late. But we have the Orioles. We can play against the Padres. The Giants do play the Rays. That one worries me with all the controversy there, although that didn't seem to be an issue for Tampa Bay last night when they won big at San Francisco. But maybe reality sets in a little bit, becomes a little bit of a distraction. I don't know. I think that's more of a stay-away series. Where Tampa was super good earlier in the season, they just aren't at this point now. They got to keep proving it. And the Giants, where they have been good, just seem to be finally hitting that skid that we thought they've been trying to hit for years, was what it seems like. You always think the Giants are going to be bad, but they end up being pretty decent overall. And 7 games above 500, they still are right there in the wild card hunt. Okay, so I think that was it. I think we found 3, and we'll go over those again a little bit later. All right, wild card standings real quick. We'll take a break, and we'll get on John Hale, and we're going to do this ACC football preview. All right, this is going to be fun. In the American League, the wild card leaders right now would be Tampa Bay. They're plus 5.5 up on the Blue Jays, who are the last team in right now. Houston Astros are 2 games above the Blue Jays at 68 and 52. 66 and 54 are the Blue Jays. So they are the landmark to get to. Behind them are Seattle 2 games back, Boston 3 games back, Yankees 5.5 back. Yeah, I do think I like that Boston-Washington angle with the overs for sure. Yankees 5.5 back. So they're not out of it. They need to do some work, as do the Angels. But tough opponents for both of those teams tonight, and they could find themselves even further back as this week goes. Cleveland 8.5 games back, closer to the top of the division lead than they are of the wild card. Detroit 12 games back. Let's put them in that. You need to win 75% of your games at this point. All right, in the National League, Phillies 2.5 games up on the Marlins. That's the landmark to get to if you're following the Marlins. Record of 63 and 57 right now is the last spot in the postseason, and the Giants are half a game above the Marlins in that race. So they could fall out quick. The Phillies treading water. So this is much better race here. As we have 3 teams within 3.5 games. Cubs and Reds just a game back. Now the Cubs have 2 extra games to play. So they will get that. Reds, 62-58, game back. Diamondbacks 59 at 60, 1 game now below 500 after that tweak job up in Colorado last night, losing late. 3.5 games back of the wild card are the D-backs. Padres at 6.5. They're the Mets at 8.5 back. Even the Pirates, Cardinals, and Nationals 9.5 back. I mean, any of those teams go on a 75%er to end the season here in the last 40 games, 41, 42, 43 games, whatever you have for a team here. Mets, 43 games left. Cardinals, 43 games left. It looks like they all have 119 games played for the Diamondbacks, so they have 43 games left. Reds have 42. Cubs have more than that. They have 44 games left. All right, so the Cubs have the most games in that bunch, and you got to think maybe they can surpass either the Marlins or the Giants. They just got to keep chugging along. All right, so that's all your baseball stuff. Let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break. If you want to advertise with us, you can always email me deepend757@yahoo.com, because you know why? That was a good unscripted segment with flow. And big things happening on the show soon. We're going to be on several platforms. So stay tuned to all that. And we will be back with the ACC preview. John Hale, reunited after this.
operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shucking good time.
Hey, does your home have algae or stains on the siding? Is there grime built up on your deck or brick patio? Coastal Pressure Washing Services has a warranty of professional services. From pressure washing to window cleaning to deck and fence staining, as well as dryer vent cleaning, you got it all. Call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net. Again, call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517. Do you want to advertise with Deep End Broadcasting? Send us an email at deepend757@yahoo.com. That's deepend757@yahoo.com.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
It is estimated that 23% of car accidents each year involve a cell phone. That's 1.3 million accidents a year. Reaching for your phone, you are 4 times more likely to crash. Dialing on your phone, 2.8 times more likely to crash. And texting on your phone, you are 23 times more likely to crash. Attentive drivers are safe drivers.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. If you're behind the wheel, you may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
With us now on the round robin, it is my distinct pleasure to have on the man who taught me most everything he possibly could about sports talk radio. I was his producer. We both worked for a radio station that covered Virginia Tech football in the New River Valley, Blacksburg, Virginia area. And I am talking about none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the man who predicted super conferences 25 years ago when everyone looked at him like he was a crazy man. I'm talking about Mr. John Hale. John, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Steve? You forget to mention about haunted house. Yeah, you know. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a long story, but
well, I mean, yeah, we got a quick minute to tell it. So part of our deal was one season, at least for me, as John's producer, me,
John, and God rest his soul, Robbie Rags. Some of you in the audience may remember Robbie. Were able to travel with the Virginia Tech football team, and we would do our tailgate pregame show, which would come on before the network for Virginia Tech IP Sports broadcast. This is the real official dealio. We'd come on and do our local thing there and get a feel for the stadium. We went to Central Florida. Me and John went and sat on the roof of East Carolina down there in Greenville. Syracuse, New York was on. We went to the Carrier Dome for a good game there on a Saturday night. And one of the highlights of the trip was, man, what a spread too. Still one of the best press box spreads I've ever seen in my life was going to Boston College. And me, John, and Robbie took Boston College by storm. We had to go to the Uno's Pizzeria and make up some story on why we should have our radio show there. I think that I think I told the manager that we talked to the manager 6 months ago and already had it booked. And he's like, "Oh, that guy, that's why they fired him, blah, blah, blah." And they set us up. And then part of the evening festivities, as we just explored the area, was going to Salem and checking out the haunted houses at the old Salem witch trials up there in Massachusetts, John. So, yeah, exciting times and a lot of fun to travel with you and Robbie back then.
Oh, yeah. And Robbie was peeking in the window of the house of the Seven Gables. It was like 2 a.m, folks. And but you know what? One thing about that Boston College trip, and I would never forget it for my whole life, was that run that Michael Vick made early in the fourth quarter, and Virginia Tech needed to play. It was 3rd down and 12.
Yeah, close game.
Zone 18, and then Michael Vick went on a tear and it went 82 yards for a touchdown.
I do remember that. Yeah, yep.
And what was so funny about it is that Robbie had sat there. We were eating all that wonderful food, and we were watching the game. We hit 50-yard line seats right in the press box. And then Robbie just got up and had to go to the bathroom, and he missed that play. Oh, yeah. Maybe one of the greatest college football plays that I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Oh, man. That was it. We were in the Michael Vick era in Virginia Tech football lore. Man, just such great memories. And really, John, a lot of your influence has spawned off everything that I'm doing now, to be honest. I mean, we want to go to events, tailgate with the fans, or, I've already been to Wrigley Field to do the show. I've been to Lambeau Field to do the show. I've been to PNC Park in Pennsylvania for the Pirates, and I've done my show there. And all that's spun off from what we were able to accomplish about 25 years ago there in the New River Valley. So good stuff. And
I'm going to tell you what.
Good to know we're still doing it.
Yeah, while you were producing my show, I mean, you really made my show. You took it to another level. And you were getting guests on my show that were just, I thought at one point was just impossible. And you made that happen, brother. And I'm going to tell you what, I missed those days and truly appreciate what you did for me. And both of us together at this point, and especially you yourself and doing what you're doing, is a tribute to what we did back in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
A great time.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you, John. That means a lot. And hey, man, we push forward with what we love, and what we love is ACC football. Will the ACC even be around in 5 years? Who knows? We're going to do an ACC football preview with you here in a few minutes, but let's talk about that conference stuff just real quick. Obviously, we've seen the mass realignments. Well, they've been going on for years, but here we are again, reshuffling things. Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Of course, the Big Ten acquisitions with UCLA and USC, and now they're taking in Oregon. All these conferences getting dismantled, wondering what they're going to do. Now we hear the ACC talking about potentially bringing in SMU, Cal, or Stanford. Will Florida State end up leaving? There's so many questions that remain unanswered and probably will be for some time too, as well as who knows what's happening behind the door with the money changing hands here. But talk about that, John. Talk about the conception of the Super Conference and your thoughts of 25 years ago and how that has kind of started to play out here in the last decade or whatever, and even to seeing the evolution to where it is now. You're on it, man. Let's talk about it. What did you see from the get-go?
Well, this was actually, I kind of experienced this back in the very early 80s. And I knew at this point there was something going on with college football and coaches and
the
so forth.
Early 80s. Wow. Okay.
And it goes back to Jackie Sherrill, who really became the first $1 million coach. He became the head coach of Texas A&M. He was at Pitt, and then he went to A&M in '82, and A&M paid him $1 million a year, and he really was the first $1 million coach. And this is we're talking 40 years ago, over 40 years ago.
Right.
And it's for some reason I played college football, so I kind of got a gist of kind of what was going on to be around those kind of coaches. And he had just a lot of money, and I thought to myself, there's just something not right with this picture. And as time progressed and as time went on, we started getting in the 90s, and about the mid 90s, all these coaches started to make this money. And I knew at that point something was going to happen because there was a lot of players, some, not didn't stand up a whole lot, but there were a few in there that were a little bit disgruntled about their coaches making, this kind of cash, and then they weren't getting anything, in return from it. And you can say all you want about scholarships and these kind of things, and that's free money and it pays for an education, which is true. But to do what a football player does, from the time he gets up in the morning till he goes to sleep at night, it's 24/7, 365 when you're in college football, and it's a job. So when these players felt like it, some of them started to feel like they should have been compensated and weren't. Now you started to see a little bit of a grind there, and I felt that. I heard that. And so I said, okay, somewhere down the line, something's going to break. And sure enough, in 2000, you had some players who were trying to form a union out on the West Coast. And that was the first time I heard of that. And I said, you know what? This is going to happen. And these players are going to force colleges to pay them one way or another, whether to get a stipend, whether to get NLL contracts, whatever the case may be. Something was going to give, Steve, and sure enough, it did. But this whole thing about payment of players, to me, this is where it all started for me. And you're saying, okay, well, what does that have to do with super conferences? Well, first of all, you have to pay the players. Okay, you're going to have to pay them somehow. So you got to be in a media place in the media where you're going to get that kind of exposure and you're going to get that kind of cash. So where's that cash going to be? The Big Ten, the Southeastern Conference. At that time, it was about 60, 70 schools, which it probably still is to some degree. But these were the schools that were going to make up those big universities, those big football programs are going to have to bring in the cash to pay these players. And to do that, well, you got to pull together a TV contract. And TV contract, the media, you know this as well as I do, radio and television, they like to have groups, conferences, divisions, whatever the case may be. But you got to pull people together and put together a deal that is going to pay these schools. Steve, that's what I was thinking in the late 90s and around 2000. So I said at that point, something's going to happen. And as time progressed, these players, they wanted to form a player association, I think, out in Oregon, maybe. This was back in 2014. Right. Okay. It ended up going to court. Didn't win. The presidents of all the NCAA schools just ignored them. 2016, they went to court again, and I think they lost there. And then about 2018, I think, is really where we started to see the wheels turning. And all of a sudden, here we are. And they're paying players. The NIL is real now. Supreme Court, passed, agreed with whatever the ruling was. And then now, here we are paying players. But the conferences have to form, and they got to make big money to pay these players. And then the other side of the coin, Steve, is this, and this is kind of a two-parter for me, is why so much cash? Why do these schools need to generate this much cash? Well, number one, of course, the payment of players. That's number one. Number two is the fact that they're going to have to pay the medical expenses of not only the players now in the future, but the players in the past. And the NFL is already, and it's huge. Steve, the numbers are going to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And the schools they're going to be liable. So there's two reasons why they need to get this kind of cash. There's two of them right there: payment of players, and then the medical aspect of it. And so here we are. Super conferences are forming, so they can get a pack together that can generate cash as a whole and just distribute that money. And here we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, there has to be some supreme motive behind it. I mean, that sounds right, spot on. I mean, you've had conferences being cannibalized forever, right? I mean, I remember back when the Big 12 was the Big 8, correct?
Yes,
the Pac-10 was the Pac-8 at one point. I'm not sure who the last two editions were, but I remember the old Pac-8 at one point. Before they were the Pac-10. Virginia Tech, weren't they in the Metro Conference way back in the day? The old Metro?
Were back. Exactly. They were the Metro with Louisville and Memphis State, St. Louis, South Carolina, Florida State. Great basketball conference.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Great basketball. I do remember that. We'd get a lot of Metro basketball on when we were kids.
And Louisville's national champions coming out of that conference. And really, really good conference. Yeah, and you're right, Steve. Realignment is an ongoing thing. People think, well, it's going to get to this point, it's going to stop. No, it's not going to stop. It'll never stop. You're always going to have schools moving from one conference to another or going from here to there, and it'll always be there. There will always be changes.
So what's the ultimate destination now for the ACC? Do you think they survive and they kind of can match what the Big Ten and SEC want to accomplish? Or do you think at some point even they get cannibalized into an SEC for one big giant super Southeastern dealio?
Yeah, I think, Steve, for the moment, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot the ACC is going to do. You know, Florida State has already said they want to leave, but and this is just, it's hard to grasp. But if they left right now, they're going to owe close to $500 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Because you figure that what is the contract good for another 12 years, 13 years, really?
Yeah, 19 years. Yeah, I was reading that. They were stuck in a deal until 2036, the ACC teams.
Yep. So you multiply 13 times $40 million a year, which will be the average payout. That's $528 million that they're going to owe over the next 12 to 13 years. Now that's just the TV contract. That doesn't include what it's going to take with legal fees to get them out of this. And that they say that could run into another $100 million, $150 million.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So
we really are talking inconceivable numbers that college football has with these dollars.
Florida State. Yeah, but see, here's the thing, and Stephen, they've thought this through. They've done the math on it. And here's the thing: they've already gone to Morgan Stanley and Chase banks to see if they can't finance it, to see if they can't take that $400 or $500 million and finance it over a certain period of time. If they did that, let's say that they got some kind of mortgage, so to speak, for 20 years off of $500,000, and they were only having to pay and I'm just throwing numbers out here, $25 million a year. Okay, well, if they went to the Big Ten, if they bought themselves out of this contract, they go to the Big Ten or even the SEC, and probably in the next couple of years, those contracts, the TV contract after SEC and Big Ten do theirs next year, is that it'll be worth close to $80 million to $100 million per team, and that's a guesstimate. So you take that, subtract that $25 million, $30 million out of that, and guess what? They got $55 million bucks. Now that's more money than what the ACC is going to pay out over the next 13 years. So when you do the math, well, the math will tell you that it's probably a good idea. go ahead and buy yourself out of this because you're going to make more money in the end.
Wow, that's even crazier to think. You know, it sounds like a deal you want to turn your back from. Okay, we'll just sit down here. We'll be fine. But they're still going to – it's just – the numbers are mind-blowing, John.
Yeah, they are. And that's the whole thing is Florida State are the alumni or the folks who are going to be backing this kind of deal, are they going to be willing to do that and really mortgage themselves that much money over, whatever period of time? Are they going to be willing to do that? That's a hell of a risk as far as I'm concerned. And because you have right now ESPN, who's in financial difficulty. In fact, Disney's trying to get rid of them. There's some thought about Apple buying ESPN at this moment, and which would be kind of interesting. But ESPN's a liability to Disney. So are they going to be in existence? Are they going to go into bankruptcy? Who knows? But they're saying that 2028, 2029 is going to be the telltale year. So when all these teams are making these moves right now, these TV contracts probably they're going to be doing next year, Steve, won't be good for about 6 years. They're not going to be long-term TV contracts. So if something happens at the end of 2030 and a team that all of a sudden the Big Ten gets a raw deal or the Southeastern Conference starts losing all this cash, do people start running and go back to their originality? Does it go back to those teams who might be in the SEC from the ACC? Do they go back to the ACC? Or we don't know this. We don't know these questions. That's what I say when you start leveraging that much money for an uncertain financial future, such as we're going down the path now with all this inflation and stuff, it's going to be interesting. I think I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't risk it myself. So you're asking me about the ACC. I think that strong possibility Florida State to leave, but I really believe in the long run that I think they're going to hold together. And the team that's going to hold them together, of course, is going to be Notre Dame. They got the name.
Yeah,
they got the NBC media rights. They got all that. And right now they're the influence on Stanford and Cal coming into the ACC as well as SMU. So those three schools there will probably be, my thought, will come into the ACC.
So what's the best option for these schools and their future TV contracts? Is it wise for the ACC to try to get completely devoured by NBC? I mean, do they find success through their own networks?
And again, I go back to this, and this is where I foresee a super conference with two divisions, and that's where I see this heading.
Right.
It'll probably be 32 teams, one conference, 32 in the other, and then everything east of the Mississippi River will do this, everything west of the Mississippi River will do this, and it'll be 64-team super conference. That's what I see happening. So that for that to happen, then you have to have the ACC probably merging with the SEC and the Big Ten merging with the Big 12.
Right.
And that would make up your super conference.
Chip Kelly said he liked that today. Chip Kelly had an interview today. He said, let's just take the 64 teams and do this. And, the next 64 can settle their own deal. Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. That's what I see. I've been thinking that discussions of some other people, and they said the same thing, that really makes sense at this point. Just get together, forget all this infighting in college football, and put it to rest, and just form one big super conference. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And in a way, that's sad to see, Steve. It really is. I hate to see it because I've always liked. I've always said that, the one thing Michigan will never, ever do again in the history of that football program is schedule Appalachian State.
Right.
That'll never, ever happen again.
And just the nostalgia factor kind of alone, John. I mean, I think you can't put a price tag on, so in high school or junior high, on a Tuesday night, it's a cold winter Tuesday night, and you flip it on. You flip on the old TV, you click it to channel 27, which is like one of the UHF stations. Okay,
Right.
it's not one of the primary stations. And there you have it. There's NC State against Virginia. There's, and then after that, it's at 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock, there's Duke and North Carolina playing the doubleheader afterwards. And we were really treated to just a great conference group growing up. And I always said, man, it would be great if Virginia Tech can just ever get into the ACC. And they did. They got in there eventually. And that strengthened that conference. And it still is. The rivalries are still there. All these schools are easy to travel to regionally. I mean, you can really, if you want to go see a game at Wake Forest, you can get a ticket. If you want to go see a game down in Miami, down in South Beach, you can get a ticket. There's plenty of tickets in Pittsburgh if you want to go see a game there or watch your team play there. The festive atmospheres just of Blacksburg alone and some of these other places. But there's you just can't put that price tag on the nostalgia of kind of that whole motif kind of growing up and the old Jefferson Pilot. That was great coverage. I mean, they were ahead of their time as far as programming goes, regionally for sure. And I think they had Food Line as their main sponsor for many years, which carried that as well. So yeah, it will be sad to see that kind of thing go, but that's what happens. Things change, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And the real shame of it is this, I think, is that the athlete is the one that's going to pay the price for all that. And, you're talking about if you take in Stanford, Cal, even SMU into this deal, is that, guess what? You got to travel out there. And that's not easy. It's easy for football, but it's not easy for basketball. It's not easy for baseball. It's very difficult. And some of the other Olympic sports, and to travel all the way out on the West Coast, do your thing, and then come back.
You got to think we're in a day and age where everything is delayed for a flight now too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, to get there on time is, well, it's
so I mean,
another issue.
It feels like if anywhere you travel to, you're delayed or you have a headache. I mean, I see it all the time on the social medias. I'm stuck again. 18 hours. I think one lady I knew just left. Was able just to get back from Kansas City after 3 days of not being able to get through Atlanta to Virginia.
Exactly. It's just amazing. And I think that's where, when you start doing the cross country stuff, that's where it becomes very, very difficult. You can ask West Virginia what they've been through since they entered into the Big 12, because up to this point, they didn't have a team around them. Now they got Cincinnati and to some degree BYU. Of course, that's all at Utah, but they really don't have that neighbor. And so now they do have a neighbor, which is good. But West Virginia is a better fit for the ACC, but that's not going to happen. So ask them how they feel about all that travel. It was very difficult for them, especially in the minor and the Olympic sports. Very, very difficult.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we have ACC football coming up. We can't wait for sure. Let me pull up right now, John. We're going to get into a preview. Let's do that. I mean, that's what some of the people are here for too. But that's a great lesson that we just went over as far as the evolution of the Super Conference. I don't think I've heard it broken down so elegantly over the various mediums that we've had here. Okay, let's just start with the odds, because that's going to kind of tell all what people are thinking is going to happen in the ACC. You have two declared favorites, and that is Clemson and Florida State. And then after that, it is the rest of the pack. Let me see if I can pull those up real quick. I just had it. Of course, it drops off. Yeah, and here we go. So Clemson is a favorite at plus 155. Florida State plus 160. North Carolina is at 9-1. Louisville is at 10-1. North Carolina State is at 20-1. Miami is at 20-1. Pittsburgh is at 25-1. Duke is at 30-1. Virginia Tech is all the way down at 100-1. Virginia is at 200-1. there's just odds all over the place. But it's a 2-horse race. Obviously, we know Dabo Sweeney has had that program solidified for a long time. Norville comes into Florida State and they're obviously taking a step in the right direction as well. Do you see this as a 2-horse race, or can other teams kind of sneak on in and make this thing interesting, John?
I think anytime you have rivals, anything can happen. And Clemson's had their share of defeats. Florida State, obviously, here recently has had their share of defeats. But both schools still recruiting very well. And I think, as I always say, talent wins games. It does. You can have a bad day in the office, but if you got the talent's going to win that game for you. And two, as college football has progressed, of course, offenses have opened up. They're running about 70% of the time. They're throwing the ball 70% of the time, running 30%. Get that kind of ratio going on now, which 40 years ago it was exactly the opposite. So now you got to have a good quarterback there. And Clemson's had their share of them. And they've got a couple of good ones coming up now. But talent's going to win those games, and that's why I think Clemson, correctly, if you're really picking somebody, yeah, I think Clemson is going to be the team to beat. There's no question. Defensively, they're going to be strong. Florida State is one of those programs that I think is, and I hate to use this word, but they're an up-and-coming program. It's hard to say that about Florida State.
Right.
But where they have been and where they are now, it's two different sides of the coin. And they are, I think they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be difficult to beat because they got a lot of spirit. There's a lot of strength, a lot of speed on that team, and a lot of talent. And coaches really recruited well there. But if you're looking for a dark horse, if you're really truly looking for a dark horse, this is my dark horse in the ACC, and I'll tell you why. NC State.
John Hale. I have a dark horse myself, and it is NC State. Dave Doran, the coach of the Wolfpack, 3-9. They go. How about this? Brennan Armstrong from Virginia, the old Virginia quarterback. When he is reunited with his offensive coordinator, when they had that dynamic season in 2021, Robert Anae, the offensive coordinator. Obviously, last year things fell apart. They had the tragedy there as well. But Armstrong, the quarterback from UVA coming to North Carolina State, really can uplift this team, and they have all the hard opponents at home as well. Yeah, go ahead. Talk about North Carolina State.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. The reunite, those two being reunited, and he knew it. Anae knew how to coach Armstrong. He knew his strengths and knew his weaknesses, and he played to every strength that he had. And how many games did he throw up for 600 yards 2 seasons ago? Versus to where he was last year.
Right.
Now you could say the pandemic had something to do with it. Maybe it did. It might have. But the bottom line was, some people said that even Armstrong was injured. And which he was, he did have some nagging injuries that were getting to him. But when Tony Elliott came into play, he changed the whole offense. He was not going to build an offense around Brendan Armstrong. He was going to build a quarterback into an offense that he was developing. And that offense just wasn't for Armstrong. But I'm going to tell you what, he's with the right man right now. And this offense for NC State, if Armstrong can stay healthy for the whole season, watch out, because they could win 9-10 games and maybe even surprise the Clemson or Florida State when it comes down to it. I just like this NC State team. And of course, we have a friend there, Charlie Wiles, and Charlie's a defensive line coach on that staff. Former Virginia Tech guy, was a Frank Beamer his entire career. And so he left when he brought the new coach in, Fiante, and then Charlie Wiles was let go, and he goes to NC State. And look what he's done there. And he's not only a great coach, he's a great recruiter. He's just a great person. And so, yeah, there's some. I like NC State. I really do. Just not only on a team level, but on a personal level. I think they'll be pretty good. But yeah, Armstrong is going to make things happen.
20-1 for NC State. And now this year we don't have the Coastal or Atlantic divisions. Everyone's just all in one big division, and the top 2 teams will play in the ACC championship. So They just need to get in the top 2 to get on up there. Now, let's get back to Clemson real quick too, because they will be improved on offense, right? They bring in a new offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, but Cade Klubnik seems to be a pretty talented quarterback. You got running backs Shipley, Maffa. You got good wide receivers. Stool. You have Williams. Offensive line is going to be big. So when you talk about Clemson having good defense, I mean, this offense really could be somewhat potent too, right?
No, absolutely. The kid that I like on Clemson is Shipley. I think that when he was recruited, he was one of the top players in the country.
Wow.
In fact, I think he was the number one running back recruited in the country, and I think he proved his worth. You saw what he could do last year. It was just Clemson was a little inconsistent during the course of the year on their offensive line. But, man, that kid can make things go, and that's what I think Clemson's going to go to, a very strong running game this year. They got a big offensive line, always had, very quick, very talented up front, and you're going to see them spread those defensive lines out, make it a little bit easier for O-line to be able to block, and they're going to open up big holes. And I think that you're going to see Shipley. He's going to be 1,000-plus yards runner, before this is all said and done.
And this could be a Clemson team that sticks around too, because Klubnik is just a sophomore, so he's got some time ahead of him as well. And once they really get down this Garrett Riley system, big play offense, then even more trouble down the road.
Yeah, and Riley, he knows how to open it up. I mean, he has that kind of reputation, and he knows how to work with quarterbacks, and he just knows his stuff. And I think, again, there you go. Clemson's strength is going to be on their offense, and they're going to put points on the board. And as I always say, talent wins games. If you put all your talent on offense, you can score a lot of points. You just got to hold the other team to left point.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold them down. Your NC State Wolfpack, John, over under 6.5 wins. So if you get to 7 wins, you get a winner there, if that's the way you want to go. So that
Right.
sounds like a layup, right?
No, absolutely. I think that, quarterback and the position of quarterbacks is ever evolving. And, Clemson has that kind of that run option type quarterback. That's what they're looking for. You have several teams that like the throwing quarterback. You got the USC quarterback Williams out there who is kind of an RPO kind of guy, but he can throw the football. He knows how to sit in the pocket. Then UNC with Trubisky and Hale and those guys, they're pocket passers. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of offense they like there. So that you're trying to find that quarterback that fits into your system. And obviously Clemson has done that very well. They just love that kind of quarterback that run and throw and do all those things. But I think that's going to be what's going to win you a championship, is have that athletic quarterback that can run and throw. And, I think that's what's going to do it, Steve.
How about Jeff Brom coming to Louisville? He comes home. When he played for Louisville, they were insanely good back when Brom was the quarterback. I would say, when would this be? Early 2000s, probably?
Yeah, it was back, late 90s, early 2000s, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Brom was just a big guy.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, he sat in the pocket. He knew how to read very well. He had great coaches. And, and Jeff Brom coming back, I think, is going to help that situation there. Definitely.
Okay. So what is their ceiling in his first year? Is there going to be a lot of learning curve? They have a lot of talent. So Louisville is maybe looking to take the next step, hopefully maybe finish top 3, 4, 5 in the ACC. Could they even finish second or first? Well, at 10-1 odds, they're getting some respect anyway. They're one of the shorter shots of one of these 2 top dogs that are the favorites up there, Florida State and Clemson. So what is the ceiling, do you think, for Louisville this year with the first year with Brom?
Well, you just said it, and it's his first year. The learning curve is steep, and it doesn't matter what conference you're in. So when you take over a new program and you're starting from scratch, you're doing a lot of teaching. You're teaching these kids how to rethink what they're doing, and I think it's not going to be easy. It's great to have talent. You got to have talent, but I think that it depends on what kind of offense his philosophy is, how he's going to take it into that system, get those kids into that system. Defense always comes along. I think defense is just one of those things where it's reactionary, of course, and so you're going to get that. But the offense is going to be the issue. But I think he can do it, but it's going to be a very steep learning curve. I look at Louisville being 7-5, maybe 8-4, possibly.
Okay.
But that's just because of talent.
Nice
But
season.
like I said,
That gets them into a decent bowl, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Give it absolutely. Give it a decent bowl. Yeah. I'm not sure the bowl structure right now, what the new one is for the ACC.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, they'll get in a decent bowl. You always want to go to Florida or somewhere.
Right.
The bowl that I always thought about was the Hawaii Bowl. And what is that? The American Athletic Conference champion,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
or the runner-up. The kids throw a game, and the kids throw a game to get themselves to Hawaii.
How about Drake May and the North Carolina Tar Heels?
Oh, I love that kid.
Okay.
And this will be his last year there.
Right.
If he has a decent year, he'll be like Trubisky. He'll be like Hale. I mean, he'll bolt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you got a quarterback like that, and that kind of talented quarterback, and he's very unique. I think that I look at Sam Howell and I look at his size, and he was a good sized quarterback, but he wasn't a big presence in the pocket. May is he's just a big kid sitting in that pocket. He's a big presence. He can see over his O lineman. He knows how to read. I don't know who coached him in high school, but they did one hell of a job because he came in very prepared. And I think that he's going to have a big year. And as long as the line protects him, he's a good runner, but you don't want him running all the time, and especially a kid that big. His knees become a target, and that's what you don't want to have a knee injury.
Yeah, and I'll say this too: if the defense can't get their act together like last year, they allowed so many points last year, then you could be looking at a bunch of high-scoring North Carolina football games this season, right?
Oh, absolutely. I go back to that Appalachian State game.
Mm-hmm.
Where how many points were scored in that game?
Right. Yeah, I forget. That was earlier in the season too, but I remember watching that.
Yeah, it was like the second game of the year, second game of the year. There was 120-some points scored in that 22 thing. God almighty. It's like the old WAC conference.
Yeah, I was talking about conferences getting absorbed. The WAC was way fun back in the day, and then poof, there's the Mountain West, if you remember how that went.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So Carolina, we can see how they can have some high-scoring games. All right. How about Mario Cristobal down in Miami? All right, coach for the Canes. They got some. They got some players in the transfer portal. It looks like, but what are your prospects for Miami? I know you know this team well. Arch rival of the Hokies.
Yeah, they're an arch rival. I've always liked Miami. My high school football coach played for University of Miami. He was an All-American at University of Miami. This was back in the late 50s. His name was Bester Newcomb. So I always followed Miami from even a kid. When Virginia Tech played Miami, they played Miami way back in the day, the mid-60s, on several occasions. But that program has fallen by the wayside over the last 15, 20 years.
Right.
Not the same program. And a lot of that's because of the corruption. They're already having a corruption issue down there now.
Oh, okay.
With one of the mainstays of this NIL project, it was a company. It was a $32 billion corporation. I can't remember the guy's name, who funded a lot of the NIL deals. Well, they've been targeted by the FBI for several misgivings. And so now he's under investigation, and his company is worth pennies now.
Wow.
And so now whether he did Whether he did something involving the players or involving the university, I don't know. I don't think that's the case. But then you never know. He's still under investigation. So you got that looming with that program. But Mary Cristobal, he's got a lot to do with that program. He really does. Recruiting has been very good. Now they're back to recruiting players. They're getting a couple of 5-star kids and starting to get those kids from South Florida to stay home. And that's where he has to start. And of course he played there as well. So he understands the mentality and he understands the ongoings of that university and the community and such. But I think Miami, they're going to be a team. You just got to watch it during the course of the year. 8 wins maybe would be my guess. He's got to rebuild that offense. I think the defense has been pretty good here in the last few years. Just offensively, they haven't been able to make things happen.
All right, let's go on up. We're just going to jump around to everyone here, John. I want to get your take. Wake Forest. All right, Sam Hartman, he's off to Notre Dame. So that's going to be a big loss for Wake Forest.
A big loss for Wake.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a downgrade at whatever position you can name it anywhere of any sport. I mean, that's as bad as it gets. Hartman leaving for Notre Dame. So what do you know about Wake Forest this year? Mitch Griffiths is the quarterback who looks like he was going to step in for Hartman. What kind of insight might you have on Wake Forest for us?
With this young kid, he's a pretty talented kid. He's really small. He's one of those kids that we talked about being an RPO type of guy, and Hartman was a lot like that. This kid's a lot like Hartman in that aspect, but he's just not as big. And that's my question. There is size going to play into his play and the success of that Wake Forest offense? But I think Griffin, I think that he'll probably be the guy. He's only he's about 5'11", 180 pounds. He's from Ashburn, Virginia, by the way.
Oh, okay, yep.
So he's a Virginia kid. And he was pretty well recruited back in here just a couple of years ago. But I think he's going to be the starter. Behind that, honestly, I'm not really sure. But the kid is talented. So you give him a little bit of space, let him do his thing. We'll see.
Yeah, the Wake Forest has been a good team about overachieving, well coached. They seem to win more games that you think they would lose. So they've made a good habit of winning. Does Sam Hartman have a legit chance to win the Heisman Trophy?
Good. Notre Dame?
Notre Dame, yeah.
He could.
Yeah.
He's
that's
good enough player.
Big name school. The media likes Notre Dame, right?
Yep.
So if he just has a really good year and gets a lot of wins, then maybe the candidates are diluted by some. Maybe USC loses 3 games, or a couple games that maybe they shouldn't lose. Maybe that hurts Caleb Williams there or whatever. So Sam Hartman is at 20-1 to win the Heisman. So that's not too bad. Maybe worth a shot.
It's pretty good odds. And Notre Dame obviously gives them a lot better chance to do that. But the stability of Wake Forest and to maintain where they're at is definitely with Clawson, Coach Clawson, Dave Clawson. Because he had an opportunity to go other places,
right? And
he didn't, and he stayed. And that's a huge commitment, I think, from him to the university. And the university had to make a commitment to him to make sure he had the money for recruiting and the upgrades to the stadium and all these other things, which they have done. So Wake Forest is going to be no pushover. Not at all. And I think they're going to be a pretty good team. Austin will have them right there in the thick of things. Now, are they looking at the conference championship? Probably not. But defensively, they've been pretty good. They've had a couple of kids go off to the NFL here in the last year or two. I just think that Wake, they'll be, I just say they're going to finish about 6. I'll say 56.
Okay, so their over-under is 5.5 wins. So you think they're right about a 500 team? That sounds about right.
That's about right. Yeah, it's about right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
How about Pittsburgh? All right, they're going to have a new quarterback as well. They have a lot of holes to fill. 6.5 wins is their over-under, and that sounds probably about right. But, Pittsburgh seems to win some games, too, that you don't think they're going to win. They seem to always be a little bit better than the general public will give them credit for. Well coached at times for sure. How about the Pitt Panthers, John? Anything you can say about them?
The Pitt Panthers are they got a mentality up there, and Virginia Tech saw it when they were in the Big East. And it didn't matter where Pitt won 3 games in 1 year, won 8 games another year, 10 games. It made no difference. Mentally, they just had that mental toughness that the Big East Conference had. And they seem to have carried that into the ACC since they've been a member of the ACC. I don't think they missed a beat there. When you go into that game, you may beat them, but you're going to be a beaten up football team when you come out of there. But I like Pitt, but I just don't think they have the talent to overcome a Clemson. I don't think they got the talent to even overcome a Florida State. But I do see them winning 8 games during the course of the year, just because of what they've done here in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they're a prototypical blue-collar football team that just seems to grind it out and beat you, right? I mean, that just seems like it's always been for forever.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. How about this? Let's go back to Carolina. Let's talk about the one team we haven't talked about, because I feel like, flying under the radar while you have the big scope right there at Cameron Indoor Stadium with the basketball team. Here you have a Duke football team coming off a 9-win season last year, right? Then they get to start their season off against Clemson. But 6.5 wins is the over-under for Duke. They'll get their quarterback back as well this year. So what do you know about the Blue Devils?
I honestly don't follow Duke a whole lot. The former coach, what's his name?
Oh, yeah. He's been on our show before.
Yeah.
We used to have him on our show.
Yeah, I know. Here we are, man. I'm getting old.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
But he
Cutcliffe,
David Cutcliffe. He was a hell of a coach.
He did a promo for us too, if you remember that.
Yeah, and he beat exactly. He
built a good program and left it behind. I mean, they're kind of picking up where he left them here a couple of years ago. He's been out now. But yeah, go ahead.
No, and I think that's exactly what I was getting ready to say, is that he's built a good enough program to what whoever came into that situation wasn't going to be left with just crumbs. And of course, the Duke will claim themselves as an academic institution, which, they are. It's a very good school. So they're going to attract a top-level athlete because of the education they're going to receive. They're kind of like a Notre Dame type of school. And I remember Cutcliffe in his last, here about 2, 3, 4 years ago, right before the pandemic, is that he had one heck of a recruiting year. And he had a couple of 4-star kids. I think he even had a 5-star kid that committed and decommitted. But his recruiting was just going top notch. And we saw that Duke football team, as talented as they were when it came into Blacksburg, and beat Virginia Tech with 40-6 or whatever was that day.
Right.
And they were loaded for bear. But I see Duke still being middle of the pack. It won't matter from one day to the next. They'll always be right there. Yeah.
And I'll just kind of group these 3 teams together because they're trying to rise up from obscurity as well. Dino Babers in Syracuse started off the year strong last year, but they faded bad down the stretch. Boston College, a team that, we're talking about the old Flutie days. We're far from those, baby. Boston College hasn't been good for a few years now. And Georgia Tech, they fired their coach last year, but Coach Key came in, took over, and Georgia Tech actually had a nice little run towards the end of the season last year. But anything about any of those programs that might stick out to you, John? Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech?
I think, I'll start with the Georgia Tech program, is that as successful as Paul Johnson was with that wing T offense. It wasn't something that was going to win you a ACC championship nor a national championship or even get to a big bowl, really.
That was going to take years to reset, too, once they got rid of that. Yep.
Exactly. And you're recruiting, when you start recruiting for that kind of offense, you're recruiting offensive linemen that don't have to pass block much. You just got to have a lot of bulk, a lot of strength up front. But the wing T is easy to block. I mean, it's all angle type blocking and makes it easier to block defensive linemen and open up holes. But that program under Johnson, I consider it, as far as wins were concerned, he was successful. But as far as the program overall, I don't think he helped the program. I don't think he helped Georgia Tech, knowing that he was going to step away from that job at some point and just leave Georgia Tech holding the bag. Now, the new coach coming in, he has a different philosophy. And I actually watched a little bit of their spring game on YouTube or whatever the thing was. I watched a little spring game. They look pretty good. He's got some talent offensively, and they can throw the ball very well. They provide great pass protection. I think Georgia Tech is going to be one of those teams that's going to come out of the starting block, and they're going to win 2, 3, 4 games, and then they're going to fold towards the end of the season because of lack of talent. And who they're going to be playing towards the end of the season. But I like this Georgia Tech thing. I like Georgia Tech coach. I think it's
Can they win 5 games?
Yeah, I think they'll win 5.
Their over-under is 4, so they could be an overpick, okay? All right.
Yeah, I think that I think they can win early, and then they're going to have this lull, and they'll lose 4 or 5 games, and they'll pick up a win or 2 towards the end. So, yeah, potentially 5 games, yes.
All right. How about the Virginia schools? Let's start with the Cavaliers first. I mean, you're going to be the smartest man about either one of these 2 teams. But tragedy, big time, and they're going to have to recover from that. We didn't see the Virginia Tech game either. So how does this game go moving forward? How does Virginia go moving forward? They are picked dead last here in the ACC. I'm not sure how their recruiting went. Obviously, I guess not good. You'll know more about that than me. But fill me in on the Cavaliers. I know it pains you. Maybe make a case for why they can win 4, 5, 6 games.
Yeah, I think that, and this again goes back to Tony Elliott and his philosophy. The problem that I think UVA is having right now is recruiting. He's having a problem recruiting, and I'm talking about more skill position players into his offense. And he's trying to copy what he did at Clemson, which he had numerous All-Americans, numerous young men that went to the NFL, and he doesn't have that in Virginia. So I think what we saw last year in UVA up until the tragedy, we saw an offense that was struggling, a defense which was non-existent, and there's a lot of holes to fill. And if you're in, and maybe that's something from the previous coach and the way that he left the situation. Maybe that's part of it as well. But I just don't think Tony Ellis did a great job in transitioning this program to where he truly wants it to be. Now, you're talking about the tragedy, how that hurt. Nobody knows really how that has affected that team. And we'll find out, I think, as not only this year, but as the next couple of years go on. When I was coaching in high school, we had 3 different tragedies, all within 5 weeks. I was coaching at Christiansburg High School. We had 2 young men that were killed in a car wreck just 1 week after the season, and then our starting quarterback, Paul Lamb, was killed on December the 19th, just weeks after that.
Wow.
So the program, we lost 3 kids in a period of 5 weeks, and it was hard to fathom. And Steve, I can tell you personally that it changed the way you coached. It changed the way that you approach things. No matter if you tried to hold steady and look forward and do the same things as you did before, it just wasn't possible. And so we got through it. We had a better year the following year, but we had a bunch of kids that were committed. And that was the one thing it did. It brought the team together. And we went from we came into a situation at Christiansburg where they hadn't won a game in 2 years. They really struggled for 3 years. And we went 6-4 our first year. Second year, we took them to 8-2. And so coming out of that tragedy, that team won 8 games.
Wow,
and young
that's
people,
impressive. Wow, yeah.
And young people have a way of putting things just departmentalize it somewhere. They put it back on their head and they move on. Adults have a hard time doing that. So with UVA, it's probably maybe the same thing. With the youth of this football team, those 18, 19-year-old kids, even though they were subject to that tragedy, they may put it aside and say, okay, here's what we need to focus on. Or maybe some of the veterans, maybe some of the older guys aren't able to do that. So this is where Tony Elliott really has, he really has his job out for him right now. He's going to have to really pull that team together to have even a close to a successful season. And you're talking about limited talent there. Right now, UVA is not loaded with talent. And they're weak in the other line. Defensively, I think they'll be okay. But offensively, they're really struggling there.
All right, so we look for the Cavaliers to struggle this year. All right, how about the Hokies? They've been struggling. I feel like we're decades away from Beamer ball at this point. The Justin Fuentes era didn't quite work out like everyone kind of had hoped. But here we are, the Hokies. They got a kind of a fresh new start here. What do you know everything about them? So fill us in. Let us know how this Virginia Tech team can possibly excel and step it up in this year a little bit.
I think, and I'll go back to what you were saying about the previous administration. Justin Fuente, people forget when he came in to Virginia Tech. His first 2 years, he was 9-3 both years.
Yeah, yep.
And the second year, he played Clemson for the ACC title and almost beat him. Virginia Tech had the ball, marching the ball down the field right at the end of the game, down by 1 touchdown. And if they had scored with Gerard Evans, I think was the quarterback, and they were just running right through Clemson, they had an opportunity to win that game. So Fuente was really doing a hell of a job up to that point. But here was the thing: he was doing it with Frank Beamer players,
right?
And that's so when he got his own players, he started having he just had a hard time making some adjustments and these kind of things. Then he had some coaching issues as well, and he had to get rid of a coach or two, and that really kind of messed things up for Fuente. I kind of like Fuente. A lot of people don't. A lot of people didn't. They didn't think he meshed well with the folks in Blacksburg and that kind of thing. He was just a different kind of coach, but he didn't fit into, I don't think, into the Virginia Tech system when it came to socializing and these kind of things. Right. But okay, all that to say, you lead into Pry, and Pry has been in Blacksburg before. That was the thing. He was here as a GA for 3 years. He knows the town. He knows the university. He knows the folks and the type of kids that go to Virginia Tech, and he understands what type of kids it takes to make the Virginia Tech football team successful. In fact, he was probably around the period of time when I would consider Virginia Tech to be the most successful in their efforts in college football. So he brings a different element here. And last year, talking about a learning curve, Steve, Brent Pry was on a learning curve. It was so steep. I mean, if he'd have just backed off 1 step, he would have fallen backwards and gone down the cliff. I mean, that's how steep it was for him. And he made a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of mistakes made. People saw them, and they were very glaring, both offensively and defensively. But that Liberty game changed everything for him. And that was a very, very important game for him. And I think going into that UVA game, if that had happened, what would Virginia Tech have done? Nobody knows at this point, but I think they're ready. I think Virginia Tech very well probably could have won that game, or probably would have won that game. And because he did have he had some young experience there. But Virginia Tech now, coming into this season, they're relying on Grant Wills. He's the young man they're looking towards at this moment to be their quarterback. A very talented young man. I enjoy watching him. But the problem was this last season, you had an offensive line coach that was a running coach. He came from Wisconsin. He was a running type, blocking type coach, And he really needed somebody who's an RPO type of coach. To where they could form that moving pocket and that kind of thing. And it didn't happen for Tech's offense. So the offensive line, the blocking broke down. And Grant Wells was put into a lot of difficult positions to be able to perform. But I think you give him that time, you give Wells that extra second, is that he can make things happen. And I think the Hokies are in for a very exciting year, I think. And they're going to be a lot better offensively. Defensively, their defensive line is very, very experienced. And in fact, you got two deep across the board that they're going to have no problem in that front seven. And so, you got Noel Pollard in there, or Pollard. And I'm just taking some names off the top. Fuqua, who's the big 6'2", 320-pound defensive tackle, who's really proven his worth. And he's going to be a backup this year. At least that's in the depth chart. So Tech, I think defensively is going to be really good. They got most of the DBs back. They got most of the defensive linemen back. Of course, they lost Dax Hollyfield, the linebacker. So that'll be something new for them to fill in. The kid from Salem, the McDonald kid, one of the brothers is going to start there, one of the inside linebackers. And his brother is going to be, he's a backup on the other. He's on the second tier of the depth chart. He's going to be the other one. Those are big kids. They're both about 6'4", 225, 230. Mm-hmm. So they're very physical specimens inside. But I think the Tech's defense is going to be really good offensively. We'll see how the season goes. They don't have a quarterback coach. And I think that's my question right now. Why don't you have a quarterback coach? They're relying on their offensive coach and offensive coordinator to coach the quarterbacks. That's all fine and good. But that guy's never even coached a quarterback in his life. And so, it's one of those skill positions. The quarterback skill position is one of those that I think needs a coach.
Right. Yeah.
To work on your footwork, your throwing, your mental state of the game.
And a complete independent resource, really.
Right. Exactly. And I'm not necessarily think that they have to call the plays, but I think a quarterback, because everything relies on what he does offensively. And how he reacts, especially in today's game. He's everything.
Are the Hokies going to attempt to be aggressive down the field?
I sure hope so. Here you have, and I said this last year. Cole Beck, the kid from Blacksburg, who ran a 9.700 or something like this in the NCAA. He's on a team this year. He was looking he wanted to go to the Olympics, so he's really training hard in track. He became a standout in the ACC, became an All-American. But on the football field, he was a running back, didn't utilize him enough, probably not really big enough to be back at running back. But I think they're going to try him at wide receiver. That's what I would do. So I would run him, a kid that runs that fast. He runs a 9.8 or 9.700 meters or whatever it was he ran. Shoot him down the field and make him cover. Doesn't matter where he gets the ball there. Doesn't matter where he catches or not. But they can do that kind of thing to stretch the defense. I think Virginia Tech has great core receivers with a lot of speed and strength and size. And so you need to do that. You need to spread the field. And I think if they do that, Grant Wells, you're going to see him become a lot more productive type quarterback. You're going to see him probably even run the ball a little bit more when they're going to be doing cover 2 on these receivers, or even cover 1, cover 3, wherever they're going to be doing these receivers. They're going to try to confuse them. They're going to go man-to-man, and it's going to free up Grant Wells to be able to run the football. And he can run the football. But those are things we're going to have to wait and see. But it goes back to the offensive line, the offensive coordinator, making those kind of calls. If he throws the ball 70% of the time, Virginia Tech's not going to win. They're a 50-50 type team, Steve. They need to run the ball 50% of the time. They need to throw the ball 50% of the time to be successful. And that just matches their talent. And but I think they have an opportunity to win even 9 games this year. But here's the thing. They need to win game number 1. If they don't beat ODU, it's done. I mean, they got to beat them.
They have ODU on Saturday, September the 2nd. 8 o'clock game on the ACC network. In fact, we'll have you on, John, if that's cool. We'll talk about we'll go ahead and get your picks for all these games. I'll go over the games here in a second. But why don't you tell me who you got finishing 1 and 2 here? Who's going to play in the ACC championship game here in December? Is it Clemson, NC State? Are you going to stick with that dark horse?
That's kind of where I was going. I think Clemson's definitely going to be there. I don't think anybody's going to knock Clemson off their perch. I don't think Miami has the kind of team to do that. I definitely don't think any of the northern schools have it. I don't think Louisville's got it. And I just think they're going to be standing there by themselves. It's going to be a fight to the finish. North Carolina might be in the mix of things, but I really believe with North Carolina State and Brendan Armstrong on quarterback and Andy being his OC, is that I think they're going to make things happen. I think you're going to see NC State averaging 450, 500 yards, throwing the ball every game, and they're going to put up 30, 40 points every game. So they're just hoping their defense can hold true and keep the offense off the field, so to speak. Wow. Or no, excuse me, let the offense keep the defense off the field and score a lot of points. That's what I think. So I'm going to go out there and say NC State, Clemson in the finals. And what's interesting is Virginia Tech plays NC State this year. So this is going to be I think a big matchup with the Hokies and the Wolfpack. They're important towards the end.
Is that in Blacksburg or is that down at Carter Finley?
That is in Blacksburg, I believe.
All right, John. Here are the games we have slated for Labor Day weekend. All right, we'll start on Thursday, the 31st, and we'll pick all these down the road. But this is the schedule we were dealt. We got some good matchups coming up too. But we'll have Elon and Wake Forest on that Thursday night. Also, NC State will be at UConn. That'll be an interesting matchup. UConn having a nice season last year. The Wolfpack already a big favorite, 16 points on the road. Friday night, we have the Battle of Miami's. Ohio is at Miami of Florida, and Louisville will be at Georgia Tech. They'll play that in the Mercedes Dome too, I believe, on Friday, September the 1st. Full slate of games in the ACC Saturday, September the 2nd. Northern Illinois will be at Boston College. How about the Virginia Cavaliers at the Tennessee Volunteers? You're a Vols fan, John, so that'll be an interesting watch. A noon kickoff there in ABC. Wofford will be at Pitt. Colgate will be at Syracuse. Good matchup here. North Carolina is at Shane Beamer, and South Carolina. Would you ever see a scenario where Shane Beamer would end up back in Blacksburg as the coach?
You know, that was a discussion I had with somebody here just the other day. Would I see that happen? Probably not.
That's he's already in an SEC established school, but maybe if he was ever done from there for nostalgic reasons, he would come back to Blacksburg.
Well, here's the thing: he's a graduate of Tech, obviously, and played football for his dad, and that's obviously played at Blacksburg High School, so he'd be coming back home essentially. But he has this love and affection for the state of South Carolina because he was born in Charleston, and that was when his dad was coaching at the Citadel. And what a staff Citadel had. In fact, out of high school, I was recruited by Ralph Friesian, who was, I think, offensive coordinator. Frank Benwer was on that staff. Talked to Frank. What's the guy with Georgia Tech? Was head coach Bobby.
Not Crimmins.
I was thinking the same thing. Bobby Crimmins.
Yeah.
No.
George. What's George? The UCF guy, the guy who he went to Notre Dame and then lost his job, right? Because he didn't.
Yeah, George Larry. George O'Leary.
Yeah.
They were all on the staff together there.
Yeah.
And so that's where Shane was born. I was recruited by the Citadel. I ended up going to Ferrum Junior College, and then I transferred to UT Martin. Who I was just going to tell you this right now. UT Martin. I predict a big win for them on September 2nd on Saturday. They play the Georgia Bulldogs. And
nice.
Here, now wait a second. Here's the thing: is that how many days do we have left till September the 2nd?
let's see. We have
22, 23
exactly 23 days. It looks like.
See, up to this point, we have held Georgia scoreless.
Yeah. Georgia
Hey, we're
has
doing pretty good.
Georgia has a really weak schedule this week.
They do. They told me out for the team of the Southeastern Conference, yes.
Well, here's the thing. What I don't get is you're bringing all these two teams into the SEC that, for the star power. If you look at it, Alabama has rarely played Georgia in the regular season SEC. How does that even happen? That's criminal almost in a way. It's like it's like they almost just wanted them to get to the game, the championship game or whatever.
You go back to the schedules back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's when the Southeastern Conference had 9 or 10 teams. And, of course, you played 10 games at that time. But you didn't have to play everybody. You had to play everybody into your conference. And I think there was really a dislike, and a huge dislike, between Alabama and Georgia. And just like there is a huge dislike between Georgia and Florida, or any one of those opponents. What makes the Southeastern Conference a great conference. But you're right. They did not play them every year. And as they added more teams into the scenario, it still didn't happen for Georgia to play Alabama, but every so often. And I guess it was by design. I don't know why else that might not be. But you're exactly right, Steve. They haven't played them every year.
And the game for North Carolina and South Carolina is in Carolina Panther Stadium. And then, like you mentioned it as well, that Virginia Tech has the game at the same time. So we have the two TVs on, ODU and Virginia Tech. So that's a little fun Saturday night, huh?
Well, the this is the thing that scares me about this game. The ODU coach and the Virginia Tech coach are best friends. And I think that may have played into the scenario of Virginia Tech's loss to ODU last season. Mm-hmm. Was that because that coach knows Brent Pry in and out, and that's what scares me about this game coming up. The only good thing is, I think right now, is we played in Blacksburg. It's a different scenario, and plus you had a couple of players from ODU defect to Virginia Tech, some really good ball players. So you've got that into the mix of things. But this is not going to be a pushover game. I think Tech can win it by several touchdowns, maybe more than that. But they're going to come. They got to bring their A game. They got to be ready to play. And because ODU is just a dangerous team to be playing. It is the first game of the year.
Georgia and Alabama, just 4 regular season matchups since 2008.
Yeah.
All right. And to cap off the schedule there, let's see. We have LSU and Florida State on Sunday and Clemson and Duke on Monday. So good games all weekend, Don. Good ACC slate overall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always exciting, the first game. And they're trying to match up, some marquee names, get good regional matchups, and that way you're going to start drawing an audience in. And hopefully the games will be good ones. I don't think anybody wants to see a Georgia win by 80 points. I don't think anybody wants to see an Alabama win by 50 or those kind of things. I think they want to see a competitive matchup. But it's, as I say, the first few games of the year can be a telltale sign of what's going to happen as the year goes on. Most of your injuries, when you think about injuries, when do they happen? They happen towards the beginning of the season and the end of the season.
Right.
And so for a team that gets injuries early on, you can deal with that. Teams that get injuries late in the season, they're the ones that pay the price. And that's just been true in athletics forever, and especially college football. But we'll see. We'll see how these games go. And I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited for this year. And I think Virginia Tech fans have everything to be excited about. I think this team could end up being a very special team. I think they could be a 9-win team if everything falls in the right places for them. And but you got to show up. You got to play. And let's hope the Hokies can do that.
All right.
From my vantage.
All right. We'll be on top of it all year, John Hale. That great stuff. John Hale, my old boss. John, you doing anything now with media, or you just taking it easy?
No, I'm just taking it easy, brother. I work for the Marriott Corporation.
Yep.
And so I used to travel for Marriott. I traveled all over. And I had 85 colleges and universities under my belt. And so I got to meet all the coaches, and I stayed in the loop, Steve, by talking to all these guys. And it was very exciting. And my dad, Phil, he got ill, and I ended up taking care of him. I actually retired and took care of him. And then I went back to work for Marriott here within the last 2 years, but only part-time, and I write contracts for Marriott. That's what I do. So.
All right. Good deal. And you know what? We'll pick some games coming up, and then who knows? Maybe we can get together for a good portion of this season. We'll talk about it off the air. I've got some ideas in my head. Maybe we can rebirth one of our famous shows, but we'll discuss, and maybe we can get really knee deep into the ACC and be on top of that all year. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, John, go ahead, man.
No. I just said that next time I myself will be better prepared. I'm always, the difference in game one and game two is a big difference. So, yeah, but I really enjoy being on. I just enjoy talking about it. Very good.
Oh, man, lots of fun, John Hale. All right, man, have a good night. Take it easy, and we will catch you next time, okay?
All right, Brother Steve. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap up the round robin for tonight. We will catch you with us next. Tonight's baseball coming up right after this.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Hey, does your home have algae or stains on the siding? Is there grime built up on your deck or brick patio? Coastal Pressure Washing Services has a warranty of professional services. From pressure washing to window cleaning to deck and fence staining, as well as dryer vent cleaning, you got it all. Call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net. Again, call Coastal Pressure Washing at area code 757-439-9810 or visit our website at coastalpressurewashing.net.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517. Do you want to advertise with Deep End Broadcasting? Send us an email at deepend757@yahoo.com. That's deepend757@yahoo.com.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
It is estimated that 23% of car accidents each year involve a cell phone. That's 1.3 million accidents a year. Reaching for your phone, you are 4 times more likely to crash. Dialing on your phone, 2.8 times more likely to crash. And texting on your phone, you are 23 times more likely to crash. Attentive drivers are safe drivers. Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
Family owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shuckin' good time. Cue up the odds board. Let's see what we got. Man, I loved having John Hale on there. That was a nice long interview. If you missed any of it, hit the replay shortly after the show, anytime, and catch all of that ACC preview and everything that he talked about as well. We had a lot going on there. So good stuff from Mr. Hale. All right, baseball tonight. Let's get to it. Nephew Dave, he'll pop in here tomorrow. We'll get into some soccer, more baseball. We'll go over some stuff with him. We'll pick a conference or two out tomorrow. Maybe we'll hit up the Big 12, the Big 10, and kind of get his thoughts there, and we'll dissect what we may there. All right, some more college football here as we creep closer to Labor Day weekend. Okay, we mentioned it. Everyone has about 40, 41, 42 games left, and we have a full slate starting up here in just under an hour in Cincinnati with the Battle of Ohio, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. Cleveland is a plus 102 or even money, basically, at this point. Underdog. And Ashcroft and the Reds are the slight favorite at home. So let's go ahead and pop up my content for all this. It is slightly out of order, but that is fine. The Reds minus 120, like we said, over under 9.5. Okay, here are the pitchers. We have Allen as the pitcher for the Guardians. Logan Allen, he is 5-5 on the year. He gives up about a hit an inning, about a strikeout an inning as well. But he does have 11 home runs. So Logan Allen, the lefty for Cleveland, I think he did pretty decent last time out. Graham Ashcraft, the pitcher for the Reds, 6-7 overall, 4.95 ERA, 120 innings pitched. He's given up 123 hits, just 88 Ks, and a bunch of home runs at 18, which is one every 6 innings. So Ashcraft, not having that great of a year. And I think we just leave this Battle of Ohio alone. The Reds have been reeling a little bit. The Guardians haven't been super great either. So these are two teams we're not going to look to be invested in at all. Let's see. Guardians, again, in their last 10 are 4-6, and Cincinnati has been struggling
in their last 10 at 3-7 overall. So we won't look at anything on this one, and we'll just kind of let it go by the wayside. You're going to float away. Okay, also at 6:40 in South Florida are the Astros and the Marlins. Game line for this is the Astros a slight favorite on the road at -124. Marlins +106 is what I see. Over under is at a 9. Why can't they just do it normal, like +105, -125? I guess you're getting a little bit of a discount. I guess you're getting a little bit better juice if you do it this way. Okay, so we'll thank this book for their little extra bonus on your traditional juice values of what would normally be a -125 and +105 if you're going to do it that way, old school style. Anyway, it's Johnny Cueto at home for the Marlins against Christian Javier. Neither has been tremendous, but Cueto was okay his last time out. Javier, 8-2 on the year, 4.36 ERA. Cueto 0-3, 5.33 ERA. Just 27 innings pitched, but he's only given up 20 hits, and he does have 23 Ks, just 7 walks, but he's given up a lot of home runs. That's been the issue for Cueto. He has 7 bombs on the year just in those 27 innings. Javier, 8-2, like we said. He gives up less than a hit an inning. Pretty good, 117.2 innings pitched, only 102 hits. He's given up 18 home runs, 110 strikeouts to 41 walks for him. This is just another game I don't have any real interest in. I can't back either one of these teams with good faith at the moment. The Astros are down just from what they have been. The Marlins, even though they're right up there in the wild card race themselves, haven't been anything super spectacular lately. So we'll just kind of go ahead and let this one pass by as well. Okay, let's get to the 7 o'clock games. We'll start with Boston and Washington, where we have Pivetta against Josiah Gray. 2 good pitchers, too, but the over-under is juiced up to 9.5, which is kind of interesting to me. -168 for the Red Sox, +142 for the Nats on this one. Pitchers in this one are, it's Gray and Pivetta. We talked about them. Their stat lines are, that's what I'm really looking for. Pivetta, 4.16 ERA, 8-6 overall. Josiah Gray pitching well through the season, 3.69 ERA, 7-9 record. Doesn't really reflect how decent he has been. This is a righty versus righty matchup. Both give up less than a hit an inning. Both okay with the strikeouts. Pivetta a lot better than Gray. Gray more of a contact pitcher. Gray with more walks, and both of them have given up a decent amount of home runs. Pivetta 17 and Gray 16. Let's see. Looking down the batting averages. I like to do that from time to time as well. Red Sox not doing too bad. They got a lot of guys floating in the upper 200s. Even a guy or two over 300. Trevor Story, 368 so far. So he's been back 7-19 since his return. He does have 7 stolen bases too. So he's been running on the base. 3 stolen bases. So he's been a terror on the base path in his limited appearances on there. The Nats, better batting average than you would think. A lot better than the Mets. Even at the bottom, you have Vargas and Alou, 255 hitters each. Garrett in the right field is hitting 262. Smith, 266. So no one over 300, but you have a lot of guys in the mid 200s, upper 200s. So pretty consistent overall. I'm going to take a look at the over in this. You have good hitting on both sides. You just don't think down with the Nationals, but they actually are pretty decent when you look at those batting averages happening. And a 9.5, it just seems tricky to me that even though these pitchers have been decent for their teams, you would think it'd be a shade lower. So we're going to pay respect to the over in this scenario. I just have the gut if there's going to be one game that's going to have some crooked numbers, or one series that's going to have some crooked numbers, the potential to have a couple high-scoring games of the three, then you're going to get it right here with these two. Probably better pitching matchups to come as well to favor that. But we'll take a chance tonight. Even at over 12.5 is plus 255. Over 13.5 is plus 360. If you want to get super crazy, over 11.5, which is a 7-5 game, 6-6 gets you there, plus more is at 2-1 odds. You might be able to stretch that out a little bit, I think. So we're going to be aggressive with the Red Sox Nationals over. Another game we might take a shot on the over with is Wheeler and Kikuchi. Wheeler, this is for the Phillies and the Blue Jays, 7:08 first pitch. The Toronto Bats, you would hope, would wake up here coming home. They've been somewhat dormant, but now they're back home. Maybe they can get something together. They're still missing Bichette, so he's out. Bo Bichette, so he's still not in there. And decent averages still, though, for the most part, until you get to the bottom of the lineup for the Blue Jays. Philly's a bit better. Even Rojas, the center fielder, is hitting 302 at the bottom. Rio Mucho is hitting 7th, and he's hitting 249. Trey Turner, a surprise at 252, right? But Bohm doing a nice job. Harper's doing good. Castellanos is having a great season for him. Stotts as well. So you got a lot of pop in the bats of the Phillies. It's just funny. Schwarber hits 182 and hits leadoff with 30 home runs, right? I mean, would you think he would hit like 6 or something, or 5th or whatever? But they do have him in leadoff. Maybe it's just to get it one and out of there. I don't know. That's just always been kind of weird to me that that's been the case. But we'll take a look at the over in this one. Even though Wheeler's at a 3.74, Kikuchi's at 3.53, both pitchers with winning records, and not quite a hit an inning, and both more strikeouts than innings pitched with a great walk ratio. They are still susceptible to giving up home runs. All right, so there are some pop here, and if the ball can get hit hard in the friendly confines of whatever Toronto's stadium is called nowadays, the Rogers Center, I guess has been that for a minute. You're just asking to get over 7.5. So you still have a lot of bat power. 7.5 is not crazy. Really, you just need one of the pitchers to melt down, and you can get over that number. But if you really wanted to get nuts, if you really wanted to get crazy, just because the Phillies and Blue Jays sound like a super over from the get-go, regardless of who the pitcher is, it's like it doesn't matter. Over 10.5 is plus 265. Over 11.5 is 4-1. Over 12.5 is even plus 520. I mean, you can't tell me this game can't be 6-6 at some point, at some sort of a bullpen meltdown or something like that. Both pitchers get chased for whatever reason, 4th inning, something like that. So if you're going to take a gamble on the risk, maybe these are two teams you can do it with. And again, Wheeler hasn't been lights out completely. Either has Kikuchi, so maybe an over here. Peterson is the pitcher for the Mets at home against Bailey Falter and the Pirates. I think the Mets young bucks, I feel like have sparked them just a little bit, even though they've got destroyed by the Braves in that 21-3 game, even though they're getting ready to get passed by the Nationals. Bailey Falter is 0-7 on the year, 5.21 ERA. I mean, this is just a guy the Mets have to beat, right? I mean, or they are just that bad themselves. Doug Peterson, the pitcher for the Mets, who's been better lately, but still 3-7 overall, 5.61 ERA for him. So I would expect it to be a little bit more of a higher scoring game, maybe more so with the Mets bats as well. So I think you take a chance on that. The Mets at a very nice minus 2.5 over 6.5, which is a 5-2 game, pays plus 310. So you're just asking the Mets to win by 3 runs at home against the Pirates team, who's been really not good at all. You're going against a pitcher who is 0-7 with an inflated ERA. So this is, laid out. If the Mets can't just win it tonight, they are that bad for sure. And again, their young batters have been playing well, the young talent that they have brought up. Severino has not been a good pitcher for the Yankees. They are in Atlanta. They got smoked last night, losing by 12 runs. Yankees blowing, I don't know if you saw this ticket, but there was a ticket on Sunday that was a 10-leg parlay. It was $10 to win $955,000. Granted, now they had to have a couple of things happen late to get the other tickets to get the green checkbox, but the only loser on that ticket was the Yankees blowing a 5-run lead in the 9th inning. Could you imagine losing a $955,000 bet on a $10 ticket from the Yankees and the Braves? I'm sorry, from the Yankees and the Marlins of all teams. The Marlins score 5 runs to tie you, and then more runs to beat you in the 9th inning. That is just sad. So you just think the Yankees with Severino don't stand a chance again against Elder and the Braves. Maybe the Yankees might have quit at this point. So I don't know if I can trust the Yankee bats and the Braves to get 11 runs. Maybe the Yankees get shut out. Only 3 runs last night. But look for the Braves to win by any kind of alt number I think you want to put on it, to be honest. Fado and Ober are the pitching matchup for Detroit and Minnesota. About a -200 favorite for Minnesota. At least it's climbing that way. -196 actually. Detroit on a slight comeback. Over under 8.5. I don't think we want anything here. These are just 2 teams that we want to stay away from. Although in the recent series, the Tigers did do well against the Twins, winning that series. I think the one game we took the Tigers, they lost. But Fado for the Tigers is 2-4, big ERA at 5.80. Ober, Bailey Ober, 6-6, 3.40. It sets up for the Twins to win, but again, don't trust anyone in the AL Central at this point in the season. Oakland is at St. Louis. Just 2 teams you just can't trust at all either. So we'll pass this one. Hudson and Watkins. Cardinals are -220 favorite. I guess only because Oakland is that bad. But we'll go ahead and pass off of that. We do like the 8:06 Eastern time start down in Texas. The Rangers with Montgomery on the mound will go against Lucas Giolito and the Angels. Giolito, not good at all. He rebounded a little bit last time, but lit up at the start before that for Los Angeles. We'll go ahead and take Texas. I just don't know. The Angels just haven't been doing much at all. Let's see here. Where's this game? Here we go. Hot night in Texas, too, 95 degrees. So they'll probably have the roof closed down there at Globe Life Field. Does that roof close? It looks like it closes. No, I guess it's not. It might be open air. Let's see. The Angels, I want to see their last 5 games of runs scored. So they have done this. In their last 5 games, they've scored 0, 2, 3, 3, and 4. And the 4 was against a Giants team who hasn't been great. The Rangers, although they've had some lower scoring games here on the West Coast trip, they did win 9-3 one night in San Fran and then 12-0 last night in that skunking of the Angels. So I think it's the same thing tonight. It's just a blowout. I don't think they score as many runs probably. But look for Texas for whatever number you want to put on it with the Braves. The White Sox and the Cubs. Cubs are -178. White Sox +150. Over under is 8.5. We're not going to do anything with this Battle of Chicago. And 76 degrees and sunny skies, but I think the wind is blowing in. Touki Toussaint against Kyle Hendricks as the pitching matchup. Hendricks, the savvy veteran, just not as dependable this year overall. Tristan hasn't done anything either. I'm not going to trust the bats of the White Sox at this point of the season. White Sox scoring 3, 3, and 6 in their last few games. 9 runs in the game against the Yankees before that, and then before that. Cubs have been in lower scoring games too as of late, not really lighting up the scoreboard. Well, against Toronto, they won 5-4 and 6-2, so that's pretty good, but losing 11-4 in the last one. Lower scoring games with the Mets is what it was. So we'll just lay off of that. Hancock, the pitcher for the Mariners, against Lyles, the pitcher for the Kansas City Royals. Mariners minus 144 on the road. Kansas City is plus 122. We're not going to mess with this one. We have no interest in this. Hancock, just 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 3 Ks in his major league debut. Jordan Lyles, 3-13 on the year, 6.13 ERA, 126 innings pitched, and only 88 Ks. The Mariners bats could get pretty hot in this one, so maybe you do take a look at them. To be honest, Kansas City is not a good team, and the Mariners have been decent. So yeah, I think you can lean on the Mariners here. Actually, Diamondbacks Rockies 8:40 starts. It looks like the pitching matchup in this one will be, where is it? Coors Field. Joe Mantiply and Ty Block are your 2 pitchers for this one. Mantiply 7.20 ERA. He's only pitched 20 innings on the year. Block has 32 innings pitched with 40 hits given up, just 13 Ks to 6 walks in that stretch. Mantiply is not doing so great either in a strikeout. So I guess a 17-2 ratio is not the worst. Both have given up 4 home runs. I guess you're looking at a Coors Field over here, but this is a, let's see, 86 degrees, pretty night, over under 12.5. Do you really want to mess with that in Coors Field? I don't know, but the pitchers aren't the greatest either. They are 2 lefties, so that is your wild card for that matchup. 3 more games, and we're out of here. Baltimore with Flattery is at Michael Wacha with the Padres. The Padres are the favorite. I'm not sure why the Padres are a favorite over the Orioles. They're not anywhere near as talented as the Orioles are right now, or as hungry either. 78 degrees in San Diego tonight. The Orioles just are a machine. Wacha 8-2 on the year, though, 2.84 ERA. Flattery 8-7, the Cardinals pitcher coming over in the trade. Actually, 2 former Cardinals pitchers going head-to-head here. 4.33 ERA for him. The averages, but God, they just must. Yeah, the averages for the Orioles are much better than the averages for the Padres. But the Padres aren't even as bad as you would think. They still have some pop. They just must lack some clutchness at the end of the day. I know their bullpen is bad. But we'll lean with the O's here. You got to ride them. I feel like the Padres are just bound to throw in the towel at any minute as they fall further and further back in that Western division. So the Orioles have been good. If you want to ride them tonight, you can definitely do that again. Rays and Giants tonight. Again, Wander Franco in trouble, so he's out. How does that affect the team? Zach Littell is in there against Jacob Junis. Junis 3-3, 4.36 ERA. Littell 2-3, 4.10 ERA. Let's see. Junis has more strikeouts than innings pitched to the walk ratio and 11 home runs. Littell 49 hits and 41.2 innings. I think this is just a stay away. The Giants are reeling. Tampa Bay could be mentally challenged in this affair just from everything that they've had to go through as a distraction here. So we'll lean off of that. And the Brewers, who are hot, are at the Dodgers, who are hot. The Dodgers are the better team, but they are laying 220. So that's a big number. But they can definitely outslug the Brewers. If this was a playoff matchup, I think you take this all day. Over-under is 9. So the Dodgers would be the play here over the Brewers. I don't care who's pitching, but it is Adrian Hauser, who is 4-3, 4.38 ERA against Bobby Miller. Better at home, and he is at home. So 6-2 overall, 3.89 ERA. So that's your baseball slate. Definitely lean on the Dodgers. Lean on the O's if you like. If you want a super over Coors Field special over 12.5, because you have to bet a game that's over 12.5, then by all means go ahead and do so. Take a look at the Mariners. I think, of course, you change all these prices with going with some sort of an alt line. Lyles is a terrible pitcher, so can the Mariners just kind of beat up on him for a night? That's what you hope for. Good matchup for the Rangers against the Angels tonight, and with the Braves against the Yankees. So Rangers and Braves are two teams that you would look at. And take Flyers on the over in Philly, Toronto, and then also with the Red Sox, Nationals. I think I like that one better, although I feel like it's the same style of pitcher, kind of going in both, to be honest. So we'll just take a risk and go with all that. So overs, Red Sox, Nats, Phillies, Blue Jays, and then Braves, Rangers. Oh, you can take the Mets, like -2.5 over 6.5. Again, against the bad pitcher. The Mariners, the O's, and the Orioles. Okay, so there is that. We'll get on out of here. We'll get Nephew Dave in here tomorrow night, and we will talk more college football, more baseball. We even start to look at the EPL slate, which the EPL slate was somewhat exciting. As we're trying to get the music, here we go. The EPL slate was good last week, good games. So if you watched any of the EPL, they were competitive. So we'll start to look ahead at those for the weekend coming up. All right, John Hale, the guest tonight. We thank him. Replay right after the show concludes in a minute, if you want to catch that ACC preview one more time. All right, this is the Round Robin Drive Time. A little bit late here at 6:14 p.m. Eastern. Signing off from the Chick Speech Studios. Good night.